my office.
All right. Getting ready to turn it on now, and as soon as I bring Bob in as an attendee, then I'll officially make the announcement.
So he won't be a panelist this time?
As soon as I can find him on the list of attendees.
Can we see the list of attendees now?
Yes.
Okay. So we put up chat, Q&A. Oh, 95 participants, I see it.
Oh my God. 95.
90 attendees, 91. Oh, you do have a list to go through.
Commissioner Phillips, if you could raise your hand, I will bring you in as an attendee.
Good thinking.
There he is.
Now, one of the questions I had asked me, can people tape this video on their own?
I don't believe the attendees can. They could download it or they could view it from YouTube.
Okay, so they can't tape it live?
I don't believe so, but
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure.
All right.
If the functionality is there, they could. I don't believe it gives the attendees the ability to do that, though.
Okay, the one news outlet asked that. I didn't have an answer.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for
Hi.
joining us for the May 13th Lebanon County Commissioners Workshop. This meeting is being recorded and will become public record. For anybody who wishes to comment, please use the raise your hand function. And when the chairman addresses you, we will bring you into the meeting to speak. Mr. Chairman. Oop, you're muted.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate your help with all this.
No problem.
In our meeting, we have an agenda or goals for this afternoon, but before we get into those, we'd like to ask for public comment.
Bob Dowd, could you go over the procedure?
Yep. Anybody wishing to make comment, please use the raise your hand function within the Zoom app or at the bottom of your screen. Currently 105 attendees. At this point, no hands are raised.
Okay. Well, let's begin with the expanding of our services for county government with regards to opening departments within the municipal building.
I do have one hand that was just raised.
Okay, well, we'll accept that and bring the call in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Chris.
Yes.
It's Chris Coyle from Levtown. I have a number of questions, but they're based on the letter that was sent by public officials to the governor, and I'm wondering if it's better to ask those questions if they might be more relevant and less time wasting after I hear what the commissioners have to say today. But,
as usual, Chris, you're correct.
Okay. Will there be questions after the commissioners are done?
Of course, yes.
How about if I just wait till then? Is that okay?
That's fine, Chris. Yep.
Oh, also, one other thing, and maybe either Bob can answer this. I understand that, or I thought I heard that it might be possible to submit these questions via the chat app, which might be clearer, to get something on a screen that's written rather than me asking the questions orally. Am I able to do that at some point?
That's up to you, Mr. Chairman, if you want to allow that. We do have the functionality there.
Okay. Oh, okay. I just thought it might be clearer if the questions are clearly stated in writing. That's all. But I'll wait till.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? Are we okay with the written?
Sure.
I don't see any reason for it, to be honest with you. We've always we've always answered questions in our meeting room, and we're just in this function now because we have to be. So I think they can ask our questions orally.
Okay, well, that's fine. Then do I understand that I can wait till after the meeting or till later on in the meeting?
Absolutely, Chris. Yep.
In that case, I'll shut up for now.
All right. Look forward to it. Jamie, would you like to proceed with the proceedings?
Sure. As I understand it, you want me to talk about the intent of how county government would proceed with a reopening.
Yes, and maybe what departments would be impacted and so on.
Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, I had requested that all of the departments submit a reopen plan, which would outline the measures they will take at the point at which the commissioners decide we're going to be opening up to the public at some extent. I do want to say here that there have been a lot of departments, if not all of the departments, to some level, who have been providing the services that county government typically provides. It's been a challenge. It's been, in some cases, at a reduced capacity. But all employees have been on standby, and many of them have been called on during that standby to come into the office, whether it be one or two at a time, whether it be a portion of the day, to deliver the services that they all provide. That's from row offices on the first floor for that do marriage licenses, process taxes, accept court documents, and so on. And all throughout the entire organization. Obviously, we have some departments such as the jail and Renova Center and 911 who are 24/7 and have been working in that capacity and has never stopped. But a lot of the sheriff's office has been there. The district attorney's office has been. There are still crimes that are being committed, and there's still investigations that are being made. So I just want to start off with that and be clear that there's still been an awful lot of county business being transacted and going on, even if it's not readily visible. What I've asked the departments to do is come up with their plan on how they would do so in a socially distant, responsible way, how they would handle the public if the public has needs or is in need of documents and so on. And I've gotten, I would say, most of the departments I've asked them to have them to me by today, and it's still today. So, but for the most part, I have those plans. They're very consistent throughout in that the intention of departments is to bring employees in on a rotational basis, have coverage in the office, be able to provide all of their services that they can either remotely, electronically, telephonically, any way they can. And if the need arises that there is a face-to-face transaction, then those would be done by appointment. And that's the gist of it. That's the crux of it to start with. There are some that have always done it that way, and for them it's an easy transition. And then there are others who are accustomed to people waiting in line at the counter, and obviously under the circumstances that's going to be a little different. So we will maintain a presence of the deputy sheriffs at the door. If there is an appointment that someone is reporting for that they've made with the department, they will be screened at the doors and permitted to come in to the offices and do that. And at this point, we're optimistic that we can do it that way, and until we go to the next stage and go to the next evolution in opening up a little bit more each time. So that's a general overview, Commissioner, of how these plans are shaping up. The courts have been functioning in an emergency capacity. They've been taking PFAs and some custody hearings when needed, and arraignments, and a lot of that's been done over video conference, even with inmates from the jail. And my understanding is they intend to open up the MDJ offices on June 1 at this point. Again, the sheriff's office will be providing a presence at those MDJ's office in order to ensure that there's PPE, that, you know, mask wearing, and just in general having a presence there. So jail is still under the same restrictions that they've been since about mid-March. Visitation has been suspended. Much movement in and out of the prison has been suspended. Vendors are not there unless absolutely necessary for some sort of, you know, physical repair to the building. The Renova Center has been doing well. They're maintaining things and have no COVID cases in the Renova Center. 911 seems to be active and healthy. I talked to Mr. Dowd about that on a regular basis, and they've taken precautions where only staff is in and out of that facility. So those are some of the examples, you know, for the 24/7 operations, and I feel pretty good about the way things have been going. I don't know of a service that we have not been able to provide or find a way to provide. One of the biggest things that people are asking about are the tax payments. Obviously, that's a real challenge for the folks in the Treasurer's office to keep up. Initially, we had a portion of the staff in there. A lot of people watch their bank statements to see when their checks clear, and like to reconcile on a regular basis, and a lot of that's taking longer, unfortunately, and that's just a matter of how quickly we can get through things, taking the precautions and getting the deposits in. My understanding from Treasurer Newen, as of yesterday, we were, I believe, processing April 17th receipts. So, you know, we're about 2.5 weeks behind, maybe 3 weeks behind on that. So, no, actually a little longer than that, almost a month behind.
Just a month.
Dates are going faster and faster. So, you know, there have been a lot of questions about that, a lot of telephone calls. Initially, they were working hard to process them and trying to keep from, you know, the time that it takes to answer those calls. You can literally put, you know, 1 or 2 people on the telephone all day, and they were prioritizing the processing of checks because generally people were calling to see if their check had cleared. We've gone back to answering the phones in that office, and once these reopen plans are implemented at your direction, then we'll have phones answered all over. Anything I didn't cover on that, Commissioner?
No, I think that's good. Any changes or any enhancements of services that we're talking about in terms of departments opening up is being done with the coordination of the President Judge Tilwalk and Court Administrator Steph Exarlis, so that we can do this in a fashion that, you know, ties in with their needs as well.
Right. One thing, if I may add to that, just thinking about the Building and Grounds Maintenance Department, they are, as we speak, in the process of installing some shields and things like that, and increasing the air circulation, maximizing the fresh air circulation, and running it around the clock in anticipation of, you know, additional people being in the building. And those are CDC recommendations. Plexiglass right now is the popular product. It's becoming you know, as difficult and in some cases as expensive as it was to get PPE and N95s early on in this process. So everybody's going for plexiglass. Our maintenance department has done a terrific job of acquiring, you know, either plexiglass or plexi sheet that can be used. It's a little bit of a thicker material. It's see-through. It can be treated, you know, and disinfected. And so that's been installed already in the Sheriff's Department, where they've been taking concealed carry applications for new owners over the last few days, and that seems to have worked well there.
The only department that may have a problem with the spatial distancing is the Public Defender's Office, and Public Defender Diedrich is working on figuring out a way of dealing with that because of the tight quarters that they have there. But certainly he's on board with trying to get you know, appointments back up and representing people that need representation, but he needs to figure out the space issues. Yeah,
we have that case in several places. I think DA's office is a challenge, Sheriff's office is a challenge, Children and Youth. But you know, that's the reason for the plan, is to try to work through those things.
All right. Anything else on? Do we want to go suggesting any departments in the first wave, or are we just going to bring the department heads in, or how? What do you think in proceeding.
You know, I know we've got department heads in the audience here, 139 participants. It's a little tough for me to scroll through there and
We can have them
I
raise.
see Barb Smith is there. She could possibly talk about it. Barb's been in the office regular basis. I think Brian Craig was going to be on here. Some others. So if there's a raised hand there, if it's Barb or someone else.
We do have a few questions. If Bob, Dowd, if we want to entertain some questions in the interim here before we go on.
Sure. I'll bring the first raised hand in.
Okay.
Hi, so this is Talia from CBS 21. I just want to be clear on what you were saying. You were saying that you're going to slowly begin opening certain departments with social distancing measures in place. So what does that mean as far as a reopening of the county?
Well, we are still going to discuss that, but we wanted to talk about the expanding of services in the municipal building first, and then talk about the yellow, going to yellow as a second agenda item.
Okay. And then question, I think for you, Bob, are you going to be, I know it's recording. Is this recording ever sent out, or how does that work?
It's uploaded to YouTube.
It's uploaded to YouTube. Okay, thank you.
And there's a link on the county's main webpage to the YouTube.
Got it. Thank you.
Will that be done today yet? Sometimes there's a delay in the posting. That's why I wondered.
It all depends sometimes how long the meeting is and how long it takes to upload to YouTube. But you know, from here, Director Dowd forwards it on to IT. They upload it, and then it becomes public. So it really all depends on the speed of upload.
Are you ready for the next question?
Yes. Go ahead.
Is it Leah?
Leah or Leah Haya, are you there?
I think you're probably talking about Holly Leahy. It probably looks like
Wow.
HA, but yeah,
Okay.
it's Holly Leahy.
All right, Holly's our director over at Mental Health, Intellectual Disabilities. So you want to talk a little about your plan, Holly?
Sure. We have about 50 staff members, and what we're proposing are staggered start and end times. So we would actually have what we're calling 5 cohorts. They would begin entering the building at 7:30 a.m. and then 15-minute increments, so that we would have all 50 staff members at some point. All of our staff members, aside from 10, are in separate offices or separate cubicles. So we would easily be able to socially distance from one another. And those that are in shared cubicles would be able to utilize our interview rooms and our conference rooms, so that there would be ample space to spread out around the building. So as far as our staff, we would abide by wearing face masks in all common areas and out within the building, aside from when we're by ourselves. And then for the public coming in, we're looking to slowly phase in public. So we're not really looking to have, it completely open from day one, but rather continue to do telehealth as allowable through all of our payers for the case management services and the early intervention service coordinators. And that would be done through the phone or video conferencing, as we have been doing. And that is going very well. We do have a psychiatrist that comes into our office on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She is also completing telehealth. So it's either over the phone or video conferencing with individuals for psychiatry services. And then the most face-to-face we currently have is our injection clinic that is on a Tuesday afternoon. those patients are coming into our office on a Tuesday afternoon. They're all required to wear face masks. And then we have additional PPEs for the staff involved with that they wear disposable gowns, they wear the face masks, as well as face shields and gloves. So we want to ensure that there's full safety. As individuals are coming into and going into the doctor's office, then we're cleaning those chairs and we're doing additional disinfectant of all of those areas. So we're trying to be very careful, but we would propose just very slowly phasing our patients back into the office.
Okay, and you're one of the departments who has been all along providing services to your clients, sometimes by telephone, and sometimes on call.
Yes, we've been doing very well with continuing all levels of services. So we have not discontinued any services. Likewise, our funding has continued for all services involved.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you. All right. Is there another one there, Robert?
I have 3 more raised hands. I believe 2 are department heads and 1 is not. Is there a specific order you'd like me to bring
Take
those
the
in?
not. On second.
Hi, this is Casey Long. I don't have any question. I just wanted to thank Commissioner Ames, Commissioner Phillips, and District Attorney Croft for the courageous and heroic actions that you're taking on behalf of Lebanon County, and let you know that Lebanon County residents support you 100%. Thank you.
Department heads?
Just a minute.
Hi, Barb.
Hi. Okay, first of all, I just want to say that we have been continuing the service. The staff has been really great at rotating in. And of course, we're doing our social distancing and the masks where we can. A few things that I did want to bring to your attention, the passports. The agency currently is closed, so I was hoping we could start to schedule passport applications, but I don't think that's very practical right now because they're only operating on a emergency situation, life or death. So they said if we would even accept an application, it would sit for months. So we're going to push that off to the side for now. If somebody really does need a passport, we would give them the connection to make and they would talk to the agency directly. So that's off the table. The next thing, we have attorneys. We actually have mailboxes, slots set up in the office, and that was to cut down on postage. We have gone back to the attorneys mailing in and emailing. So we were thinking possibly having, like, say, Buskin Davis would be able to come in and file from 9 to 9:30 or 9 to 10. Having different law firms have a certain time, either each day or one day a week. That way we can give the schedule ahead of time to the deputies outside and they would know who's coming in and when. Also, if the attorneys have more business in the building, hopefully they could do everything at once. That's a possibility we would have to work out with the attorneys if that's feasible. The other thing we have, searchers. We have been doing screenshots so the searchers could continue their work. Of course, we know there were 10 licenses given to the local searchers. We're asking that searchers now would be able to call us. And again, we would give their names so they could come into the office and use our terminal. We would continue to use the local searchers though, as we have. The other thing is the public. I'm not sure what we're going to do with the public other than if they have business in the Prothonotari's office or the clerk of courts, they would just have to call us from the outside, be escorted in, of course, with the mask and all the precautions taken, and then we could conduct business that way, and then they would be escorted out again.
Want to give your phone number, Barb?
For the clerk of courts is 717-228-4419, and the prothonotary 228-4418.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have one more.
It's like Pierre Hess.
Yes. Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, very well. Yep.
Okay, so in terms of our office, we have been fully operational and maintaining all functions, frankly, at a phenomenal rate. I'm very grateful for my employees and for the hard work they've shown. Our office could move to being open and to bringing our employees back. We have very limited ongoing contact with the public. For the public to need something from our office, they would either typically be an unrepresented defendant, an appointment that an attorney or one of our diversionary court representatives requests, or it would be a detective or law enforcement interview. All of those things we know in advance, we can stagger in advance, and we have 3 separate conference rooms in the downstairs office. We have 1 conference room in the upstairs office. So if for some reason someone would need to meet with an individual from the public at the same time as somebody else, at times I'm sure it will happen. We have the space in the conference rooms to do that. I personally made sure our office had wipes, had disinfectant, things like that. And our employees are wiping down their personal spaces after use. As they're working in shifts, they're cleaning doorknobs and common areas in between starting and finishing. So from our end of things, I think it's fully workable for us to be up and running and to be obviously cognizant of the risks and to make sure that we're careful in how we deal with the public. But I don't know that we have the same level of contact or communication with in person that some of the other departments would have. So we're ready to go. We've been operational. We're fine. And if any of you have any questions for me, feel free to ask.
Thank you. All right, next. Our treasurer, Sally Newman.
Good morning,
Go ahead,
Commissioners,
Sally.
Bob and Amy, Dave. As far as where we are with the tax processing, we are at the 25th of April, actually. So my staff has been doing a wonderful job trying to get this payments processed. And opening up to the public for tax claim, I feel we can set appointments for that side of our office, and that would be handled well. On the other side, I just haven't quite figured out how we can tell people to come in to pay taxes at a certain time and it will stay on schedule. Same with dog license or something like that. I mean, the tax payments, we do have the drop box in the back, which maybe if more people would be willing to do that, it would work, but that's one thing we are working on, and Steve is going to be putting up that barrier for us, so that will help definitely. But other than that, we'll have to work at what we need to do and do it.
Okay, and so there is a box for people to walk up and put their tax payment in that's monitored by the security forces, the sheriff's deputies, and otherwise, is there a phone number you'd like to give for people if they, and you have to stress to people that there is a delay. This is not
Yes.
as usual. So you're with the skeletal crew you're working with, that's going to create some gaps in time. So people have to be patient. But if they need to get in touch with your department, what's a good number, Sally?
Okay, the number for the office would be the 717-228-4420. And the drop box has been at the back door since we have closed, basically. Matter of fact, that week before, when the public couldn't come in, we already had that box there. We do have some envelopes there if they don't have it in an envelope. And so they can definitely still do that. And like you said, the deputies are at the door there, and it is brought in every evening. And if they can mail them, I understand it's taking us a little time, but that would certainly, of course, cut down on the public contact.
Very good. All right, thank you, Sally.
Sally, do you have an answering machine that you could put some information on that they would hear when you're not there and they could leave a message?
No, we do not. We
You
do
do
not
not.
have an answering machine.
But they can email you as well, right?
Yes, and that we have been getting a lot of emails, which of course takes up a lot of time that we can't be posting because it's just to answer all those. It takes some time. So, but yeah, they can email or call us now.
We'll
And that's
probably-
S. Newen at lebcountcnty.org, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a good idea, though, if there'd be some technology available to have an answering machine, because then you could take your calls through the night and it wouldn't get you a backlog maybe as well. If people are just, especially if it had a menu of some frequently asked questions, available, maybe we'd be able to take care of a lot of the questions as they would come in. So that'd be something I'd look into if you.
Even if there wasn't an answering machine, I would just like to be able to give a message to the people of what they can do in our situation, but I don't know that that can be done. I thought possibly because of our phones going through the computer system it could, but evidently I don't know that that can be done without an answering machine.
Yeah, we'll make a note. All right, Sally, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
One other mention there for the Treasurer's Office. On the county's main web page, there was a link titled Real Estate Tax Information 2020. That includes the extended deadlines for the discount period and for the penalty period, as well as the email addresses right there.
Good. Thank you.
I have one additional raised hand. I'm not sure who it is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
It's Brian Craig. How are you?
doing fine.
Excellent. I just wanted to piggyback on what Sally said. We got a voicemail in our office shortly before this whole thing blew up, and I asked for a second one from IT. They said they weren't able to get it in because of getting a contractor into the courthouse. But if a contractor is able to come in now, Sally may be able to set up a voicemail. I know we've been using voicemail together with Zoom video conferences to do a lot of our work in our office, and we've been doing really well with that. I think our office is going to be very minimal impact on additional people coming into the office, only people who can't access those technology that we've been using.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And one more.
Oh,
Go ahead, Daniel.
You're still muted.
Okay, how about now?
You're good.
that's good.
Good to see you all.
Thank you.
I just wanted to touch base that our office has been in as well, taking care of sort of the daily maintenance kind of stuff with UPIs and that. And my staff has done a great job with that.
Dan, excuse me, would you identify which office and explain when you, instead of UPI, what you're, for the public?
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is Dan Seaman with the Lebanon County Assessment Office. And the UPI is the Universal Parcel Identifier certification that goes on each document that is recorded with Recorder of Deeds. We've been in working on those. And then also we've had a remote hookup provided by IT and have been keeping the deeds up daily. So we are current with deeds and transfers so that the school tax roll that's coming up shortly should go off without a hitch, we're hoping so. But as far as the staff, we'll do the same things everybody else has done. Now we are, as you guys know, more of an open office where people pretty much have free range coming through the office, but that's going to change. We're going to change some things around. We have moved desks and things around so that we can kind of partition people off so that they can only come to a certain part of in the front door and to the staff that's right inside the door. And as they need help from an appraiser or mapper or clean and green questions, then our staff would call them to the folks and deal with them there, have the mask on and that sort of stuff. Then going out, now we do go out and visit properties. That may be a little bit more of a challenge for us, but we feel that if we can go out, visit the property, ring the doorbell, back up, wear the mask, have gloves on, we should be able to take care of that. Under no circumstances will we go in the house, even if the property owner allows us or says we're allowed to. The state certified board of real estate appraisers has deemed that that's not necessary and that we should not do that. So until they would change that, we would not go into a house. So then the other thing I'd like to say, EST, Evaluator Service Technologies, provided courthouse online access for the public for free for a month. And they're continuing that as of now. And I would like to get that access continued. That will slow down and cut down some of the traffic through the office. As of yesterday, there was 2,515 hits on the site through the Lebanon County site that they could access their property records, and anybody in the public could access that. And of the people that EST services, we are number one in that time period. So I'm really surprised by that, but would like to continue that. So that's all I really have to say. And I thank you guys for the job you're doing. So.
And Dan, thank you. Dan. We have that's a representative group of our 40 departments. And if there are no more, we'll go on to the next agenda. But I also want to thank the departments that have been doing some cross training and also helping out in the voter registration office. Dan's office has been in, and others. So we really appreciate the cooperation between departments during this unprecedented time. And Bob, Dowd, is there anything else?
Nope, there was one raised hand, but they lowered it, so.
Okay. All right, Jamie, should we proceed with the second part of our agenda? Is that
your meeting?
Commissioners, if you would, I'd like to talk about the letter that was sent out last Friday that represented that, we as a county were considering and defying in many senses the governor's order to stay in the red zone. And I'd like to just air that out with comments from each of you. And our goal is to get a consensus and see where we are in this matter as commissioners, so we can give some guidance to the public. So I'll ask either of you to go in any order you'd like. Anybody in particular want to speak first?
Well, I suppose I should. Obviously I signed the letter that was signed by our legislators and some of the other elected officials in the county, including our district attorney. And I haven't changed my position since then. I'm still, although the county commissioners do not in reality have the authority to move the county into the yellow, I think that that's something that we can suggest. And as we've already indicated through the some of the discussion from our department heads, we're able to handle the challenge, as I think the people of Lebanon County are. And so that's pretty much where I am on that issue.
Commissioner Litz?
Sure. I think that it is our job to give people hope, but not false hope. And along those lines, we've had information come from our insurance carrier letting us know that if somebody sues us over this, that it might not be covered, and if people lose licenses and things like that. And we had encouraged things that we could get drawn into lawsuits that they might not cover. So I think that's a consideration. We've also been notified of a loss of, I'll call them stimulus dollars that went from the federal to the state and supposedly would come to the counties. And if these expenses add on top of purchasing extra laptops and whatever else comes along, there's, you know, possibly a tax increase down the road. So I really don't think that we should move forward with this proposal, because we had discussed it last week and I've not heard back, and perhaps that's what you're going to be telling us, Commissioner Phillips. I've not heard back about where the medical facilities, the hospitals stand, WellSpan and the VA hospital that have patients, and what that means to them if we go back into another zone that we ask prematurely. I mean, even Dr. Fauci, the president's medical expert, said that we should not be rushing into this thing. So again, I would caution and ask your consideration in rescinding support of that letter.
Thank you. I think we've been in this position 7 weeks, and that's a lot of time for people to be out of work or businesses to be closed. I think this is more of a transfer of the rights and liberties to the individuals so that they can choose for themselves. We have many businesses that are larger and have, you know, very sustainable backing, such as Walmart and Lowe's, etc. Hundreds of people going in and out a day, and Boscov's and other smaller retailers selling much the same merchandise are closed for all these weeks. Many are saying that they can't go on living off their lines of credit, their credit cards, skipping meals, in food lines, waiting for food. These are individuals and business owners that if we do not do something on their behalf, they're not going to be making it to the finish line. So that's why I think this is not only a societal challenge as much as it is a health challenge, but it's an economic challenge as well for the realtors to get back in business, and these probating of wills. I think all that's good stuff, but the mom and pop shops on the main street that are unable to be open, if we can't trust those shop owners to care for their safety and the safety of their clients and their constituents, you know, why would we have that any different than the folks that are running the managing the stores at Walmart and Lowe's? I don't see why we shouldn't trust other people in our county to be safe and take care of that. The vulnerable population and the children, I mean, those are areas that we cannot let up our protection of. But all the people that are in the middle trying to survive this thing financially, they're in many states of despair right now. And this is a lifeline to them to try to say, hey, look, Lebanon County will not prosecute you if you choose, but you need to know that there are risks involved. They could be of a nature of your license, if you're a, you know, under the state licensing program, and that there are financial repercussions perhaps from the county, but I have assurances, or at least strong support, that we would not be facing that financial tool are being used as a weapon against us for not complying or for going at a pace faster than the governor's allowing. Our numbers are looking much better in terms of our rolling 14-day and 7-day new tests or new cases. So those things in concert with the low census at the hospitals, and also comments from our coroner and Dr. Jeff Yoakum, who has a huge family practice. Many folks in the vulnerable age. He signed on to that letter. And so from a local standpoint, I think there's a lot of good reason why we're not just being reckless. We're doing this in a safe, responsible way, but we're giving people a chance to survive.
And if I may add, I think we're being a whole lot more responsible than the governor has been, because the governor has refused to allow anyone into his inner circle. And that includes not only our legislators, but legislators across the state. And it also includes every county commissioner in the state. He has never reached out to include county commissioners in his decision-making in this whole process. And I thought, well, you know, I'm a Lebanon County Commissioner, and he obviously was upset with me when he came at us on Monday with his all of his threats in his news conference. So I thought, I'm a very practical person. And I thought, well, you know, the best thing I could do would be to talk to the governor. The governor and I could have a conversation, at least over the telephone. I'd be happy to come to his office if he'd invite me. But I made a call to the governor. Obviously, I didn't get him on the line. I got a person at his office down in Southeastern, because the one in Harrisburg rings and rings and rings and rings and rings. I'd still be sitting there listening to it ring. But I made a call at 11:30 yesterday. And I thought, well, you know, just requesting that I think the fact that I'm a Lebanon County Commissioner, and obviously his remarks Monday indicated that he was upset with me and willing to threaten me with all kinds of things, including the loss of funding and, you know, pulling licenses and so on and so forth. I own a business, and we have 3 different licenses. I thought maybe he would pull the sales tax licenses. I doubt that, because he's not going to be getting much of that anyhow. But obviously, I've been waiting. I gave him my cell phone number, and I keep it on me 24 hours a day. As of 11:30 today, the governor had not returned my call. So I left a message again telling him that I thought it was in his interest and mine for us just to have an open conversation. But obviously, he's not interested in that. He's interested in following a hard line. We've met the objectives that this whole lockdown was supposed to accomplish, and folks are just not willing to wait any longer. You know, Commissioner Phillips, you mentioned the box stores. Have any of you been to Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart lately? It looks like the Christmas rush season. And as Commissioner Phillips said, the small businesses, the people that really need to have a business on a daily basis, they're locked down. They can't even open their businesses. So our numbers continue to go down, even with the thousands of people shopping at Lowe's, Home Depot, and Walmart. Our numbers continue to go down. So I can't be convinced that someone going into a comic book store or something like that is going to just throw this whole thing out of kilter. So I'm very disappointed. And, you know, the governor hasn't even made known what it's going to take to move from yellow to green. He even stated that in a telephone conference yesterday with CCAP. And that's the first time that he directly communicated to county commissioners. And he was kind of a little bit apologetic. Of course, we had to submit questions ahead of time, so I wasn't able to ask a question about why he would threaten funding from the federal monies to us. And, you know, Lancaster County received their money directly from the federal government because they have over 500,000 residents. But we have to be beholden to the governor to get our share of those funds, those care funds. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Friday, I'd like to at least entertain some wording that we can hope to come to some consensus on, that we can debate. we would be willing to talk about so that we can see if we're interested in, if there are 2 votes available for signing such a document, be it a statement or a resolution. I've given some sample wording. I don't know if any of you have any sample wording that you'd like to present or talk about, that we could, with 24-hour notice, have a public meeting on Friday to adopt the wording. This wording that I'm presenting was from my son-in-law, and I worked on it yesterday morning, and we took some with Pierre Hess's press conference so that we make sure that we're telling people that though the district attorney is not going to prosecute people that violate going into yellow, we cannot protect if the governor steps in and wants to do something with licenses or those other things. That's why this is a choice of the business owner to know in their own hearts and their own reflecting their situations, whether it's safe for them to open, and then also if for the customers, if it's safe to patronize. So those are things that we all as individuals with our American God-given liberties here, we are not being able to exercise. And I think that's kind of where we are in trying to get something that we can get people a little hope and moving in the direction, because we'll never get to green if we can't get to yellow.
Commissioner, knowing the law-abiding citizens that you are, could you possibly go back to next Friday and Thursday, and I need to understand how it was a decision was arrived at to sign a letter outside of a public meeting? What kind of conversation took place? It just doesn't feel quite right because we're bound by the Sunshine Law not to deliberate outside of a public meeting. Could you please explain that so I can understand that?
I don't know if that you'll understand it, but I can explain the process in which I signed it. And that was, I got a call from Senator Arnold, who was quarterbacking and authoring the letter, and asked me to sign on as an elected official in Lebanon County. And after reading it and being satisfied, because the only caveat that I gave Senator Arnold was that the full healthcare officials and providers would have to my satisfaction, be all right with this. And also Dr. Yoakum would also have to be part of it. So with both of those things satisfied to my, or to my satisfaction, I was willing to sign it. I didn't vote on anything. I just agreed to sign a letter. So I don't know if our counsel is here. If I violated the Sunshine Law, it was inadvertent. And Dave, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. I mean, I think you're hitting on some of the key points there. In general, the Sunshine Act obviously contemplates the advertising and public participation in a meeting, and to make sure that when official action is taken, it occurs at a public meeting that has met the requirements of the law to give notice, to allow public participation, etc. In the scenario you're describing to me, where another elected official offers or requests your participation or co-signing onto a letter, it doesn't appear that there's any other deliberation or meeting or anything that would have occurred amongst the Board of Commissioners that would have triggered the act of a public meeting having occurred, or of an official action of any kind. Really, again, I think for all effective purposes, you individually, although you could say you are an elected county commissioner, but you individually were choosing to take that action without the contemplation, without the voting, without any official action on the part of the Board of Lebanon County Commissioners.
Thank you.
You also had mentioned Thursday that you wanted input from the hospitals. Was that input received? I haven't received a copy of it.
I'm sorry, I did say that I got information that was satisfactory for me to proceed to sign, both from the medical provider and from Dr. Yoakum.
I don't understand that. Could you be specific? Did you talk to somebody from the hospitals?
No, someone from I think Senator Arnold's office spoke with someone from WellSpan Corporate, and that's where I got the answer that I felt was satisfactory to proceed. If you'd like to communicate with them, you can find out how they would like to have that answer worded. It was Bob Riley of the WellSpan corporate.
Yes, because I think it's important that we all get that information, and the public was expecting to hear that as well. And then, I mean, no disrespect to Dr. Yoakum, but he is not a specialist. He treats dead people, if you want to call it, he takes care of the dead. But when it comes to this pandemic, I don't know that he's an expert, so I don't know why his opinion would be elevated above those like Dr. Fauci who are saying this is the wrong thing to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have 5 raised hands.
All right, let's have it.
Can I say something before we move on?
Sure, Bill.
Because obviously, in Commissioner Litz's own style, she's again made the accusation that that we have violated the Sunshine Law, and I think that's very unfair. And I see it on Facebook already from some of your friends saying that Ames and Phillips violated the Sunshine Law. It's such an unfair and childish accusation, because we do have the right, even though we're county commissioners, to have an opinion and to sign on to a letter that was suggested by our legislators. So I, just like Commissioner Phillips, was contacted. I was at the Salvation Army packing groceries in bags to be distributed Monday morning when Senator Arnold called me on my cell phone, and we had a discussion, and he asked if I would be willing to sign on, and obviously I was. So that's how that transpired. Nothing illegal, nothing underhanded. I can honestly say that I haven't had a conversation with Commissioner Phillips about this issue since our last meeting, when I raised this issue to begin with.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's go to some of the questions. Davis.
You're on mute, Davis. That was a mistake, he said.
Gotcha.
Hello, this is Sally again. I just have one short comment to make. And I think if you as county commissioners are out there and we're putting into the public how we in county government are handling our offices and everything we are trying to do to move ahead. And I know the public will certainly do their best in their businesses, because I'm sure they have the same concerns as all of us do. And I just think that's a good point, that if we show that we're trying to move ahead in a safe manner, that that should help suffice the public. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
I know Chris Coyle had questions on this topic. I don't know where he got to.
He's on the list.
Go ahead, Laura.
Commissioners, good afternoon. Good to see all of you. I did want to just follow up and maybe ask the solicitor's opinion. Dave, you mentioned that by Commissioners Ames and Phillips signing onto that letter, it was not taking any sort of official action. But in essence, if the county is going to be moving itself into the yellow zone, is that not an official action?
Well, I think we are still at the stage where the commissioners acting as a board of commissioners still needs to take some official action to do so. Again, they were co-signing onto a letter authored by, or at least drafted by Senator Arnold, and indicating their support for the terms included thereof. But as far as an action actually compelling the county government, which would direct Jamie and the other department heads to take further action and steps, that would have to come from a vote of the board, which again would occur presumably at a public meeting to be scheduled.
Correct, and that's what I was talking about with our resolution. If we can get wording that we can agree on to at least 2 votes to pass it, that we would have that on Friday in another public setting.
And if I may follow up, commissioners, I'm curious to know if you do ultimately agree upon wording and vote on this resolution and move into the yellow zone, and Governor Wolf does follow suit with some of these threats that he mentioned on Monday. How will you feel about that, losing out on potential assistance funds that could be helping citizens of the county?
I'll take a shot at it. The reality for me will be that we're turning this power over to our citizens to know whether they want to participate by going into reopening their businesses and patronizing those businesses. So that's part of the equation, but that's going to be on folks with the understanding that those are downsides of this process. The money part, at the end of the day, it's all taxpayer money. I don't know if people are distinguishing that, but if the governor would use that as a tool against us by withholding money or redistributing it to other counties, I think that would be very unfortunate. It's federal money. Both Senator Muser, Congressman Muser, and Senator Toomey have both been very supportive of what we're doing, and also the fact that that should not be misused by being withheld from our county and our citizens because of trying to survive this thing in a safe and responsible way as we see here locally to do.
But don't you think that by supporting and signing on to this, you're encouraging people to break the law? The Supreme Court has upheld this governor's decision. Like it or not, he has the authority to do what he's done. And by breaking the law, then they jeopardize their financial health because people can sue them and their insurance companies won't cover it, just the same as the county. So you're giving false hope, and that's not fair. We want to help all citizens. We want to help our business. I was a business person. I've lost everything or practically everything 2 times in different fires, and I had to start over. And it's hard. It's darn hard. But we've had resilience throughout the building of this country, whether it was the Depression or anything else, and people survived. I think that it's wrong to give that false hope. Give them real hope. Tell them in 2 weeks we'll just about be out of this thing, and then we can reopen, and we won't have a resurgence that goes into August. You're not being genuine with the people.
Laura, does that,
and you can't make that promise either, Commissioner Litz. You can't make that promise. You can't deliver. You're not in a position to deliver in that promise.
But the numbers are going down, as Commissioner Phillips
That's exactly
said
what we're saying. In fact, it was 41.6, the 7-day rolling average, 41.6, which is significantly below the 50 that the governor's looking for.
It's coming down, but it has to sustain.
If he would return my call, I could tell him that, and we could discuss.
But sir, you said that yesterday you were on a call with the governor, and so you were again not telling the whole truth. You had the opportunity and didn't ask the question. You admitted that right here live in this meeting.
I was on the CCAP call with the governor and the Secretary of Health. Yes.
Yes.
What's the
misleading part? You didn't say that in the beginning.
In the beginning of what?
Of your dissertation, I guess you'd call it.
No, that was a conference call with any commissioner in the state of Pennsylvania that was on a conference call with the governor. Yes, I made a call personally to the governor.
We have Laura. Laura, does that give you enough?
Yes, it does, Commissioner. Thank you very much. If I may just ask one quick question of Jamie.
This is your third. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. And it's unrelated to the yellow zone issue. Jamie mentioned the county prison. Were there any more inmates infected or any more test results that came back?
To my knowledge, last I checked, I believe it was last night, we are at 16 inmates who tested positive. There were 3 medical staff, as were reported before. However, they have since recovered and are back on the job. Some of those 16 were some time ago, and some may have by now reached the point at which they can be cleared by medical back to the general population, and some are close. So it's 16 is the total since the first positive. But you know, as anyone does, they're going through the symptoms and the recovery and being cleared by medical as that happens.
Thank you.
With no pending tests, to my knowledge.
All right. Bringing in the next.
Galaxy S10e, who is that?
I don't know. They had their hand raised.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Hi, I am just a citizen of Lebanon County.
May we have your name? May we have your name, please?
Sure, Peggy Heisler.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Okay, I just want to verbalize my complete support for what Commissioner Phillips and Ames have said. My husband has his own small business and he's in construction for the longest time. The governor obviously wouldn't let that open, and he finally has. But I feel for all the people who own businesses, and if they are open, we will full-heartedly support them and patronize them. I think it's every citizen's right to be able to make their own decision. If they want to go out, if you don't feel safe, stay home. And as far as the federal funds, is there any way to get the federal government involved if our governor denies that to our county, since it is federal funds?
They will be involved. They've already indicated that they will. And also our legislators in Harrisburg.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I just think you have to use your common sense in all of this. And like the commissioners have said, people have been going to all the big box stores and the big food stores, and we can definitely patronize the small businesses and still be safe.
And thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
Something else that some people have given me feedback on these on this issue of reopening, and their comments are that a lot of people are not observing the spatial distancing or the masks and things in public. And my response is that by extending another 2 weeks or a month in the red zone isn't going to change that. Those people, no matter what education you give them, if they haven't done it in the first 2 months of this thing, it's unlikely that you're going to convince them, especially you know, as more time passes, that they're going to change those habits. So in spite of those bad habits, our numbers are still going in a good direction. So I just, you know, I'm trying to, it's a very complicated issue. There are no real clear good options, but this for me is the best. People are accusing me of, you know, having blood on my hands. They're threatening to boycott my agency. They will not vote for me again. And I get all that. People are reacting, but very rarely does anyone call me, very few exceptions, to ask me an opinion of how I got to my decision. They rather accuse me or name call or threaten. And that's just not a constructive way to communicate. But I just, you know, want everyone to know this is not something that I've taken, you know, a leap from zero. I've really studied this and tried to come up with the best place that I can be at peace with myself and try to do the best I can in the position that I have. Okay, bring the next one in, sorry.
Okay.
I'm here.
Chris.
Thank you. Just following up on, I think, 2 points that have been raised already. My understanding is To be considered for a partial reopening under the state guidelines, counties have to have fewer than 50 new COVID cases per 100,000 residents over the past 14 days, not the past 7 days, as Commissioner Ames mentioned. And looking at the yesterday numbers, I haven't seen today's numbers. Lebanon County was way over 100, I think 134. So I'm interested in making your decision to go yellow. What specific numbers are you relying on, and how do you feel they're better than the state's measurements?
Chris, I'll just, my interpretation is that it's 50 per 100,000 people. We have 140,000. So our number actually is 70 over a 14-day period. So that's a rolling number. We are at we are now at roughly 136, 131 over the 14-day period, but that's down from 251 and 216. Those are the numbers that were,
No, I understand.
So we're going in the right direction is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're going in the right direction, but you still appear to be above the governor's numbers. So are you using some other yardstick or other higher number that you guys believe is appropriate?
I'm using the governor's own numbers that we get every day, and they use a 7-day guide also, which has us as of yesterday at 41 for a 7-day new rolling number. So, by trends, and certainly the curve has flattened, and
yeah, we know that.
This is a judgment call. We feel that, at least I do, that we need to be able to trust our folks to go into the businesses reopen, as you heard my diatribe earlier, to an even scale, give the younger people, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm distracted by someone, is that Jo Ellen? So that we can give the little guy a shot against the big boxes and even the playing field a little bit.
I understand all that, but would you
without going into higher risk is what I'm trying to do. Go ahead.
Okay. Would you agree though, and whether anybody's numbers are good or bad, right or wrong, would you agree that the county has not met at present the numbers set by the governor?
Yes.
Okay. Now, a related question on the medical issue here. Before you and Commissioner Ames signed that letter that was apparently written by Senator Arnold, did you or Commissioner Ames personally, not through Senator Arnold, personally consult with any hospitals, doctors, or epidemiologists who said it's safe for the county to now go yellow?
Bill, do you want to answer?
No, I did not personally counsel with. I was told that Bob Riley from WellSpan was asked about this, and that he said that WellSpan would not raise any red flags.
Okay, you did not talk to Mr. Riley. Somebody told you that.
You know what, Chris? I like you. I like you a lot, and I respect you. But I think you need to pull back from your attorney role. I'm not going to be cross-examined here in front of everyone. If you have questions, we'll answer the questions, but don't cross-examine me.
Okay, Mr. Riley is not a physician, though. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But you still sound like an attorney to me.
No, I'm just trying to make the questions focused here.
Okay.
Do either one of you, Mr. Phillips or Mr. Ames, believe that the orders issued by the governor to date are illegal?
I'm not sure if they are law. I'm sure they're legal because it's under an emergency declaration. I guess part of my issue is that his inability to get consensus from the people that are on the front lines here in these counties. And look at Juniata and Warren. They're in red zones that they have hardly any activity. We are going in the right direction. There's a lot of good things happening that is not being recognized. And so, yes, I do agree that he has the authority, but this is an unprecedented length of time that we're under this emergency declaration. Usually those things are a week or 10 days because it's a bad storm and it's over. But, you know, this is an open-ended thing that's been in place for 2 months. And that's why it's requiring a little different treatment. That's all I'm saying. And I know there are risks involved, but that's part of, you know, rights and things that people have to look at their liberties that they feel are being violated. And that's why we are where we are.
Thank you.
And by the way, I did speak with Dr. Yoakum, who is a doctor, and he's got a huge family practice. He told me that the activity on this in his last 3 weeks has been nil in terms of that huge practice. So that is part of my reason. And also what he sees with the deaths that have transpired during this occasion. So this situation. So that was the basis of my being willing to sign the letter.
Thanks. That's all I have. I appreciate it.
And the word that I got through Senator Arnold's office by way of Bob Riley. Okay. Next.
But Dr. Yoakum caused us a $5 million out of pocket in the past. So I don't know that we want to hold him up to make our decision.
Dowd, do you have any other questions before we assassinate any other?
I have 9 raised hands at this point. So.
Okay, let's go.
Here's the next, Nora Shelley.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Nora.
Okay. Hi, Commissioner Litz. You had mentioned something about an insurance carrier reaching out to you about not being covered should lawsuits arise from this. Were you talking about an insurance carrier for the county, or was that for a business unrelated?
For the county.
Okay. Can you explain a little more about what they said? And then I guess I would wonder from Commissioners Ames and Phillips whether that made you rethink your decision at all.
Jamie, would you like to talk about that so I don't misquote anything?
Yeah, because you already have. They didn't reach out to us. Jamie reached out to them.
They actually had multiple inquiries from counties that are members of Pennsylvania County Risk Pool. The answer wasn't crystal clear. It was that it depends. You know, the question of whether or not a county would be liable. And as long as I see Dave continuing to nod yes, you know, I'll feel like I'm in the right territory, because he saw the email as well, I'm pretty sure. But the answer is it all depends. It's the nature of the suit, whether the suit is requesting punitive damages. You know, it really it's an it depends answer. There are circumstances under which it could be that the county would not be afforded a defense, but they can't specify, you know, this one is, this one's not. It really all depends. You don't know it until you see it. Dave, am I missing anything there? Is that fair?
Yeah, I would agree with that kind of brief summary. There's no right or wrong answers here necessarily until we know what the nature of the claim is. They did point out some various policy provisions and how they could be an issue and how it could be potentially discussed in litigation. But again, until there's an actual claim, it's very hard to evaluate that, the facts of that claim up against the language of the policy and the law to make a determination whether coverage would be extended or not.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Nora?
Well, yeah. I guess I'm wondering for you and Commissioner Ames, did the message from the insurance carriers, did that cause any hesitation about signing that letter?
It didn't to me, because, you know, a lot of things are not covered automatically under a pandemic. You know, I pay for insurance that has loss of business coverage, but you know what? It says in the fine print, you don't get loss of business coverage during a pandemic. So, you know, insurance companies are insurance companies, and they're obviously going to try to avoid a claim no matter what. So I don't see how we're going to escape that. We can't escape it every day of our lives. So we're not going to escape it now.
I'll let our solicitors answer stand for me. I looked at that and I felt the same way. It's going to depend on the claim. And the only other added piece of insulation there is that our district attorney is not going to prosecute for folks that this is not county claim related, but if it's a business or someone that goes back into business and has a claim and there's an issue, that could be their defense, that locally they were told that, you know, they weren't going to be prosecuted. So to them, it's a legal situation. So this is, there again, no right, wrong. It's very cloudy in many respects, but we're trying to do the best we can to move forward as a county.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Christina Phillips. I'm a resident of Lebanon County, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am gravely concerned with the actions taken by the commissioners this past Friday. I find your actions a partisan and political stunt. You can't call it anything else when you excluded the lone Democratic commissioner. You either did not consider the civil risk to businesses or chose to ignore them. The economic situations for the residents of this county is real and it is serious. But you seem to fail to recognize the seriousness of this pandemic and how ill-prepared businesses and the public are to begin to resume some level of normal activity. I urge you to be more balanced in your approach, find creative ways to help those in need, find ways to help businesses properly prepare for reopening, and prepare the public for the changes they will need to accept in moving forward safely. There are no easy answers, but you are elected to serve all of the people of this county, not your party. A public health crisis is never a partisan issue. This is not the time for same old political leadership. The only enemy here is the virus. And maybe the box stores are full because you failed to help the public understand the seriousness of this pandemic, because they aren't shopping for essentials and they aren't following social distancing guidelines. That letter officially announced an official action by this county, and it was most certainly underhanded. And it has caused confusion and chaos. It'll be worse for businesses if they're forced to go close again because of an outbreak. I urge you to speak to some frontline medical professionals in addition to the coroner, and again, be balanced. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you there, Pierre?
Yes.
District Attorney, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our office and myself as your district attorney stand behind the commissioners in the fact that we all collectively signed that letter last Friday. We stand behind the position it takes, and we stand behind the general notion that in moving to yellow at the local level, it is returning the individual right to choose, to make an educated decision as to what is best for yourself, your business, and your family, back to each of our individual citizens and our constituents. We as public elected officials have a direct accountability to the areas where we live, where many of us grew up. I grew up here, I went to high school here, my parents still live here. I am 5 generations deep in this county. I have local businesses that I go to, or I used to go to, on a regular daily basis, on a weekly basis. They were passed down from generation to generation. And there is a grave concern right now that in not coming out of this and not going to yellow, we are not going to have those local institutions, the mom and pop stores, the things that make our Lebanon community vital and vibrant and bright, that we're not going to have those again if we continue to let the governor dictate how we operate and when we open. The bottom line is every person needs to decide what is best. Every person retains that right to decide what is best. And we sitting here cannot make that decision for every individual of our county. All we can do is return the rights and the freedoms back to every individual person. What we can do is not cower to someone who makes thinly veiled threats, who calls us names, and who goes to a childish level when given a public platform and a public forum. None of us did that, and none of us have. None of us will. But the bottom line here is we took a stance last Friday. We took a strong stance that backs Lebanon County, our local constituents, and our citizens to say, you need to make an educated choice. You need to know that the district attorney can't protect you from civil penalties. We can't protect you from every single consequence that's possible. But you as the individual have the authority and the ability to make that choice for yourself. And you have the right and the power to do that. Our community right now needs hope. We don't need fear. We don't need newspapers jammed in our faces. We need hope that we are moving towards something better, and that when we come out of this to our quote unquote new normal, that we as a community will be thriving, that we will be healthy, but that we will have a vital economy. Because without both of those things, we are not a community. We are one or we are the other. And the most frustrating part of this is that somehow the decision has been thrust onto us that we have to have one. We either have to have public health and well-being, or we have to have a vital, vibrant economy. And the answer is you don't. If every person makes responsible, accountable decisions, utilizes protective equipment, maintains social distancing, takes responsible decisions for himself or herself, we can have both. So I am very proud of our local elected officials. I am proud of our House representatives who stood behind us, behind our newly elected senator who stood behind us. And I'm asking our commissioners to vote and to pass a resolution which moves us to yellow on Friday. Thank you.
And just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, this is not a voting meeting, so we are not voting on anything today.
That's correct.
So we need to make sure that that's clear.
Yes. We can deliberate and discuss, but if we wanted to vote on something, the soonest we could probably do that would be Friday, because you need 24 hours notice to advertise the meeting. This is one of our township supervisors from Jackson Township, I believe. Thomas?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank all three commissioners for your time. Also, our Sheriff, Bruce Klingler, Coroner Doc Yoakum, the District Attorney Pierre Hess-Graff, our Senator Dave Arnold, and Representative Ryan and Russ Diamond for everything. This is a concerning question, and Jo Ellen, I appreciate your concerns. I would just ask that everybody consider the seriousness of this, but also the impact it is having on not only small businesses, but families. There is no end in sight of this. There is no vaccine. Jo Ellen, you mentioned a 2-week time frame. Well, it started with 2 weeks, then another 2 weeks. We're 2 months into this. There's small businesses that want to be open, as the District Attorney Pierre Graff Hess has mentioned, that they must follow CDC guidelines. Everyone that is open now is following CDC guidelines and doing safe. They're not going to be able to open and just run a open business with no safety measures in place. We need to consider that. The governor has not taken any consideration or constructive criticism or conversations with anybody that I'm aware of, especially the state's legislature. There's like-kind businesses that are shut down, and their competition is open. I know one specifically, a metal fabrication company. He's lost all his contracts because his competitor is open and he can't be. And he has less than 10 employees, no retail, nobody in. So that's just one example in Lebanon County. If anything, the governor and his threats could be considered bullying the individual counties in the state. So I would ask all three commissioners to consider not making this a partisan vote, but doing what you think is right and standing your ground. But you were elected to make tough decisions. There again, Joanne, I understand the concern in safety, and that is a concern in safety, and we need to continue that. But the box stores, I think I saw a number, and don't hold me to this, between 800 and 1,500 people per day in one of the mass merchants. You could clump together probably a third of the county businesses, and they don't have that many people in the door in one day. So the implementation of shutting everything down is literally going to destroy, or 60% of the businesses aren't going to survive through this. So, I think what is suggested, or what is talked about, is going to the yellow phase, which isn't opening the doors to every activity and operating as normal. It's just stating that we believe that we have responsible people in this county that know how to function, know how to be adults and operate their businesses and their families. There's a lot more to consider. And, you know, as far as the medical professionals, they should be giving advice, not making decisions that elected officials were voted in to make those decisions. And that's where we're at right now. We're relying on that. We need to consider that information, but there's so much conflicting information from different medical professionals. So I would like to thank you for your time and just consider that when you guys make your vote.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes,
Thanks,
you're
Tom.
welcome.
This looks like Mrs. Hessler.
Yes.
Yes,
Peggy
go ahead.
Heisler. Yep. Just wanted to put in my 2 cents again. I am a medical professional, and I can't speak for the hospital I work for, but I can speak for what I see at the hospital, and that is that we are not being overwhelmed, and we are completely prepared to treat any cases that would come in. And as far as Dr. Fauci is concerned, he has admitted that he's not the end-all be-all, and that no one knows how this virus is going to proceed. We don't know if it will die out at the end of the summer. We don't know how many people have already contracted it without symptoms and don't even know it. So I think we all have to use our own common sense in this. It sounds like many of you are, but some are not. But I agree with again, what Commissioner Phillips and Ames and the letter that was sent to the governor, and we do have to stand up for our rights and our freedoms and let us make our own decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I didn't, when we talked about the hospitals, they are very empty right now in terms of their volumes.
Sad.
They're losing, in a state, $2 billion a month. And that healthcare sector is as important in our economy as the housing sector, which is also, we have one of the most restrictive in the country in terms of allowing our realtors to do business, and how housing is not a vital or essential business is beyond me. But the hospitals are waiting to get back into business so that people are comfortable going back for their elective surgeries and such. But if those two sectors collapse, it'll be very hard to come back from, no matter how much stimulus money is poured into Lebanon County. Next, Robert.
Ms. Keller, oh, there you got it off mute.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the DA is not going to be prosecuting any of the stay-at-home order violations from businesses. So moving forward, I've been seeing several postings of businesses who now feel emboldened to not make any social distancing measures. Can't businesses now declare that they will reopen without taking any social distancing measures and still escape any sort of prosecution from the DA as per her statement?
I think my understanding would be if someone makes a complaint that people are in that business following something, that the police will respond to that.
She has raised her hand if you'd like me to bring her in.
Okay, yes.
So in direct response to Ms. Keller's question, a business is allowed to open so long as it complies with the administration with Dr. Levine's April 15th mandates. Those mandates require less than 10 people in an immediate vicinity, use of personal protective equipment such as hand sanitizer, gloves, and masks, and it also requires the business to engage in social distancing. Those protections are put in place not only for the customer, but also for the employees themselves. Law enforcement has a duty to respond to a call, to a complaint, if reported and if it believes appropriate. Our office is indicating we will not pursue criminal sanctions. We're not going to handcuff a hardworking citizen of Lebanon County. We are not going to impose another financial penalty upon an already burdened community. But we are going to respond, and if a business is not compliant with April 15th, we're going to educate them. We're going to indicate what they need to do to keep their own employees safe, as well as the general public entering the store safe. So it's not a free-for-all. We're not giving the green light for any and all activity. What we are saying is, if you feel you are able to open and operate safely, do so. If you are a member of the public and you feel safely enough in your surroundings and in your home to go out and to patronize a local business, do so. But again, everyone is in this together, and we expect people to comply and operate safely. So law enforcement is not refusing to respond. What we're indicating is we're going to educate and we're going to encourage people to comply with April 15th, and they must do so if they do in fact choose to open.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, no, I'm sorry.
If they do not, even after you go out and educate, if they decide that they are not going to moving forward, what would the second step be?
I would say that if a business gets in that position, that they're going to have to ask, what's the next step if I don't comply? Or if you know of that situation, Amy, you would alert the district attorney's office and help be part of the solution.
Okay, I think a lot of people are feeling as though they will not even bother to call in because the statement has been made that no prosecuting is going to take place. I've heard from several people that they feel as though it doesn't even do me any good to call in because she's already made this statement. And go ahead.
Go ahead. No, this is an opportunity for you to educate those people as you speak with them that there will be repercussions, and all they have to do is call in, make a complaint, and if there's enough there, then they will have someone come by and try, as the district attorney has stated, educate them and not further burden them with the financial citations.
I think it would be helpful in any further statements if the public can be made aware of that.
Okay.
So that they do not feel as though their hands are tied and they cannot, make any credible reports, because at this time, that's how some people are feeling.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I could say, in no way do I want my decision here to be interpreted to mean that I am not strongly encouraging everyone to follow the CDC guidelines, and that I think, as I mentioned earlier, the process that we are using as a county body to open our building and to provide our services, we are abiding by all of those things and taking, being careful to meet all the requirements and encouraging folks to do that. And I would want to say here in front of everyone that I strongly encourage anyone that opens their business to abide by those guidelines, because they are the best that we have. Although the medical community that we're supposed to be relying on has changed a little bit in that respect. Dr. Fauci has been upheld here as some authority, which he did admit yesterday he's not the end all, but he has changed his mind about a lot of things. He originally said in January that we're not to worry about this virus. It's not a threat to the United States. And then he said, you shouldn't wear masks because that's restricted to professionals, and professionals are the ones that need the mask. And now he's saying, yesterday at the hearing, he thought that he was excited because he looked out on the streets in Washington, D.C. and saw folks wearing masks. So this is a moving target. The goalposts continue to be moved, and we're all supposed to feel solid about the science. The science is lacking as far as I'm concerned.
I do have one additional question and then a statement, and then I'll be finished, if I may.
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
The next question is, because we have been told that if we move forward into yellow and we rebel against the order, we may lose our CARES Act funding, which we discussed. How will the county recoup the loss of that funding without raising taxes?
Well, we haven't lost it, so that's a difficult question to answer. And I can tell you now that I won't vote to raise taxes during this crisis. And, that's going to be a difficult thing. But I just don't see that as an issue. as the old saying says in Pennsylvania Dutch country, let's cross that bridge when we come to it.
But without a plan for how you're going to recoup the loss,
We
voting for that
can't
is
make a
essentially voting
plan.
to raise the tax,
We
Commissioner
can't,
Ames, respectfully.
we can't make a plan because I don't think that's going to happen. So we don't need a plan.
Well, and part of a plan, you need to know what the size of the issue is. And at this point, we're in the $500,000 range as far as money that we've spent on this that we're looking for reimbursement. So, you know, that's a number that is a moving number as we get deeper into this. So we really, as soon as we know, but I've been assured by people in a position to know that we will get the money. And, you know, and those assurances came from good sources. So I'm relying on that. But even if we don't, we're going to have to deal with it. And as I said earlier, Amy, these are taxpayer money funds from other pockets of our tax base. So at the end of the day, it's our taxpayer money coming back to us. If we're faced with a deficit, we're going to have to deal with that when the time comes. But I'm not going to make any declarations of anything until I know what the size of the problem is and how we're going to deal with it if there is a problem. So,
I think it's just important to state that a chief purpose of the CARES Act money is to reimburse for lost tax revenue. That is its purpose. So if we lose that and we can't make up our lost tax revenue, we are going to have to raise taxes.
I'd like to add something, please.
Yes, sure, Jo. Go ahead.
Thank you. Leadership is about leading. That means including everyone in the decision. I was excluded in a decision and did not have input before it was made. The public was excluded in that decision. And to accuse the governor, and I say this with kindness, but you need to hear it, to accuse the governor of being a dictator, and now this is taking place without a full, true, we should be going to the chamber, the EDC, that was rejected last week. And all the businesses should be having input. We shouldn't just be talking at people. We should be listening to them in a constructive, to the businesses themselves that are having these issues. I've gotten numerous emails. The vast majority say, don't rush it, take the extra 2 weeks. And the ones that are against, the majority of those are from out of Lebanon County. There was an orchestrated effort to have people write to us from other counties. This is not the way it's done, not for Lebanon County. We need to do the right thing, and we need to have a constructive plan and work with the Chamber of Commerce and work with the Economic Development Corporation to get this done right.
I said that I would like to make a final statement, if I may, and I do appreciate your answers and for you hearing me out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so earlier it was mentioned that we do need to put the power in the hands of the citizens to see if they want to move ahead and open, and that doing so is at their own discretion and at their own possible risk. It was also said that a document is being written to state just this. So what I am interpreting that is that it is going to be at not the fault of any of the signatories if people lose their licenses and insurance. It will be the fault of the business owners. It sends the message that you're absolving the signatories of the letter of any blame for loss of funding or revocation of insurance or licenses to operate. That puts the onus on citizens and it effectively takes it off of the hands of the signatories of that letter. And that, frankly, is the opposite of courageous and heroic, as Mr. Long stated earlier. It is cowardly, and it absolves you of any accountability for the repercussions of that letter. And I just want to finish by saying that our numbers are going in a good direction, but that is the paradox of this whole thing. We are supposed to be seeing the numbers go down. Low numbers in the hospital is the desired result of social distancing, and that is being used as a reason to stop what is working. That is like a person with mental illness deciding to stop taking their medication when they start feeling better. That illness will come back. Make no mistake about it. This virus will come back if we go back to the way things were. We need to continue just a little while longer and make sure that these efforts up to this point are not in vain. so that we don't see a spike in these cases, be kicked right back to where we were and see even more of a hardship on our local economy. And I'm also 5 generations deep in this county. And I am frankly upset and a little bit ashamed of the lack of leadership here and complete disregard for public health from this panel. And to assert that we will not have any good left here in Lebanon County if we wait a few weeks longer is greatly downplaying the resiliency of Lebanon County and its residents. We have been through far worse than this, and we will come through this. The state approval rating for Governor Wolf's handling of this is 72%. And frankly, we have a very vocal minority here in Lebanon County, which is informing your decision. And thank you very much for hearing me out. Thank you for holding this meeting. And I really hope that you will take what the minority here, but remember, you're hearing from a lot of your friends here at this meeting, but there are a lot of us who hold what I just said to be true. And I would hope that you would take that into consideration when you vote next Friday.
Robert?
Pierre, I believe, had one more statement.
So I frankly didn't want to be rude and interrupt anyone as they were responding to Ms. Keller. Ma'am, you had referenced that we need to be more clear and upfront about potential penalties and consequences, and I agree with that. In my initial press release, in my letter that I personally wrote and released on Monday, we explained that there were potential repercussions, that you had to abide by the mandate set forth in Dr. Levine's April 15th order, or opening wasn't an option, that you had these civil potentials out there that could infringe upon your licensure, upon your regulations from the state. They can result in civil penalties that our office cannot protect you from. We were very open about that. I gave a multitude of interviews yesterday and again was very open about that. It's not about absolving the elected officials who signed that letter last Friday of any liability of any consequence. On my own good conscience, I thought it was important that our local community understands the full gravity of their choice. It has to be an educated and knowing choice. And I thought it was important to explain to all of these people, yes, we can protect you from certain ills, but we can't protect you from all of them. Now, our office is open. We are receiving phone calls from the start of the business day until close, and it's been that way for quite some time. Our office on a daily basis since last Friday has received anywhere between 10 and 20 calls per day. I am personally receiving a multitude of emails, social media messages, and they're 98% positive. I personally have taken the time to respond to all of those, including the ones who have concerns, who aren't sure we're doing the right thing. The bottom line is we are returning the individual right to choose to the citizens, and that is what is important. And for people who feel this isn't the right decision, for people who feel we are rushing things, they have the ability to make that choice for themselves. But when I have business owners calling me, crying, indicating they can't afford to pay a mortgage as well as their business lease, indicating they don't know how they're going to feed their children next week, and that their savings are out and their credit cards are at their limits, it is not the duty of law enforcement or of a local elected official to make our constituents' lives worse. We are to provide hope and make it better. So again, what we are asking our commissioners to do when they vote is to provide that hope, to allow these people the individual freedoms and right to choose, and to return that right back to the people. Thank you.
Commissioner, I'd like to point out that we don't have a good contact tracing program in Lebanon County that I'm aware of. And without that, any business that opens is going to have people that go to others in the community and spread the disease. We have to be able to trace where they've been and who they've been in contact with.
Thank you. I'd like to just respond for a moment to Councilwoman Keller's comment. You know, for us to be, if we come up with a resolution that a majority of us are willing to sign on to go forward on May 15th, the idea that we would be transferring the risk to the public is not accurate in my mind, because if we don't get the money or this thing goes sideways, the people that sign on to that resolution are the ones who are going to be held accountable. So for this to be something that we're just avoiding our leadership and our responsibility, I think we're sticking our necks out, trying to do the right thing at a very high cost potentially. And I'm still, just want to be clear on that we're not abdicating. We're rather taking on more responsibility by doing what we're talking about doing if we end up getting 2 votes to go forward with it. And, you know, some of the comments I get that are negative about this come from people that have incomes that are not disrupted. They're from folks that are retired and their incomes are guaranteed. They don't have to leave their homes. They're teachers that are, you know, being paid. So there's a lot of people that can't relate necessarily to the people that we're trying to address with this. So that's another piece of this equation that I think we have to keep in mind, is that we're taking more risk, we're not transferring or trying to get out of anything, and that we are really trying to zero in on people that maybe we're not in contact with, so we don't really relate well to them. Thank you.
Well, the majority of people I've been hearing from are healthcare workers, and they're paid, but they're on the front line. And so they're telling me, give it time. They're the ones that have to deal with everybody that gets sick.
Yep, thank you.
I still have 6 raised hands. I'll bring in the next if you're ready.
Yep.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Mark Hetrick. I am a citizen of Lebanon County, and I'm also a citizen of Pennsylvania State. And I understand that some of the commissioners, like Commissioner Ames, their businesses may be losing a lot of money, just like many businesses in this county. But I would like to know, under what authority does this group of commissioners, NDA, feel that they could just outright overturn and ignore a governor's mandate? That's all I have.
Bill, do you want to comment on that?
I can comment on it. It's not really anything different than I've been saying, you know. The colonials took a stand against the king, you know, and they obviously they broke the law at that time. I just feel so strongly about this. I'm willing to take that position, and I don't think that in spite of the rebuttals that have made, that the governor has handled this the right way. He could have talked to county commissioners. He could have involved us in the decision making. We're here in the county. We hear the cries from the folks, and we've been down this road. That there are people in this county that are going to lose their businesses, and we have to give them an opportunity. And for the record, I am not doing this for personal reasons or how it affects me and my business. I really am not. If it was based on that, I wouldn't be here making these same statements today. I want to clarify that.
All right.
Hello.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir. Hi, my name is Mike Smith, Lebanon County resident, and I'm going to be quite vocal. Risk it's an inherent part of life. We're all not immortal. Every Lebanon County citizen's life is intertwined with each other. Therefore, all the people of Lebanon County are all essential. I applaud the leadership, which, by the way, is an action, not a title or a talking point, by the way, that the Lebanon County elected officials, that you guys have the intestinal fortitude to adhere to what is perceived as the best actions for our area and returning personal accountability to the people. I know best how to raise my family than any one of you esteemed folks here today. We each give you your jobs, and we have the right to our lives and any risk that we choose to take. The false hope that was talked about is chasing windmills of the moving goalposts given by and adhered to by retired officials using newspeak with no real touch to their populace other than a handshake and a smile for a few months out of the year before an election period. I don't own a small business and I haven't been out of work, but I have reproduced an awful lot and have plenty of children, one of which actually ate an ice cream sandwich off the ground after they dropped it yesterday. So therefore, from where I sit, the actions seeking to be taken are in the best interests of not only the businesses, but the youth of Lebanon County. If I forget the businesses, we need to get the kids back outside with their friends, with their teammates, with their mentors, with the other positive influences in their lives for their mental health. Personal accountability is what we've lost over time, and I'm glad to see that it's making a resurgence. You don't want to open up your business? Don't. You don't want to go to a quote unquote business going against the law? Then don't. Each of you, and I appreciate it, are giving back that choice, back to the hands to whom it never should have left, the citizens. The government is responsible for the protection of my rights. Protection of my family's health is my responsibility, not anyone else's. Thank you all for seeking to open. Oh, and Section 710-.1, Bowleg C of the Sunshine Act, the person alleging the infraction bears the burden of the proof. So from a voter, ma'am, next time bring your facts forward in the correct form, not just to gain a great soundbite for the newspapers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, Jill, please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Robin Conwell. I'm a Lebanon County resident. I'm a physician and a scientist. And I'm concerned with the lack of input from true experts in this situation. It seems like there has been some consultation with Dr. Yoakum, whom I respect, but however, he's not an expert in this situation. And also, there's been a lot of discussion about the individual right to choose. However, if businesses do go into opening, those that choose to do so, the inevitable result is there is going to be an increase in the infection rate. The more people are circulating, the higher the infection rate will be. We're in a great trend right now coming down, and our best result is, our best course of action would be to stay the course and double down right now. We could be through this sooner. If some areas do decide to open, we lose all this ground that we have gained. Therefore, we prolong our red zone phase instead of being able to get through it and finish it up in a scientifically driven way. So you are taking away the right of those businesses that cannot afford to risk their licenses, to risk their insurance losses, for those that decide that they have a strong feeling about it, and therefore they can buck the science. So why not double down, get through this, so that we can legitimately go into the yellow phase? Businesses can legitimately start to open in a safe way. Not to mention that right now, consumer confidence in being able to go out and actually participate is very low. So those businesses that do decide to open will not be seeing a normal revenue. So the risk does not justify the potential gains that they may get. I absolutely agree that people are hurting and businesses are hurting. We need to figure out how to stay the course and to help us through this so that we can get to where we all want to go.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Christine Vendel from Penn Live. If you all can hear me, I've not done this before.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to find out, you mentioned, the chairman mentioned that you were given assurances, or I believe he and the vice chairman said you wouldn't lose, don't believe you will lose the funding, and you have sources that have made you confident in that. Is there a reason you cannot divulge those sources or elaborate on those assurances?
Well, in my case, they're not guarantees. They are indications from people that are in a position to advocate on our behalf should those actions be taken against us. But Senator Toomey, I mentioned, Congressman Muser, the folks in leadership, both in Harrisburg as well. So those are the kind of folks that I have been receiving information from in the last 24 hours that, put me in a position, that's part of the equation. And if that, with their help, if needed, will be there, that's where I feel confident that we will not lose that money.
Okay, and a quick follow-up question. Do you know how many businesses do you think will take advantage of the reopening if you all vote, if two of the commissioners vote on Friday to reopen?
No idea.
Okay, thank you.
Business decision, and you know, consumer confidence being down and low participation. Those kind of things are all part of people's decision as to whether it's a good time for them to open up and take the risks.
Mr. Chairman, just in response to the earlier comments about people lack confidence and they're not going to visit these businesses, and I think that's true. Although I don't know why they're so confident in going to the box stores, but it's going to take years before our local economy and probably the economy of the state and the nation rebuilds. You know, you can talk about, let's just wait 2 more weeks and then it's going to be over. You know, how many times have they moved the deadline since they've begun? There's no guarantee that in 2 weeks it's going to be over. And I think the state of the economy is just going to be such that it's not going to be, we already said that we're not going to flip a switch. But the economy isn't going to come back even when people get to the green zone. It's just not going to come back that quickly. So the pain is not over, but at least give the people an opportunity to make enough to survive.
Thank you, Commissioner.
There is no alternative to death.
I have one more raised hand.
Okay.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
this is Hi, it's Peggy Heisler again, Lebanon County resident. I've been listening. I wholeheartedly agree to Mike Smith's comments. That was very well done. And as far as the caller who was the doctor/scientist, since this is a virus that's new to us and unknown, it's hard to figure out how anyone can be an absolute expert and predict what it's going to do. Why isn't anybody in the media and even locally bringing up the fact that Georgia and Florida's numbers are actually going down? And they've opened up businesses that everyone was crying about and saying should never have been open. Tattoo parlors, salons, gyms. I don't think anyone really knows and can say for definite what is going to happen. And again, I support opening up the businesses. Like another caller said, if a business doesn't want to open, doesn't feel comfortable, they don't have to. And my thought is that demand is going to be higher than what people think. I think there are a lot of us out here who will patronize the businesses if they open up. And I think also that you will see other counties following our lead, just as they have with saying they're going to defy the governor's orders. And that might even go, you know, to other states. So I think we need to keep an open mind, let the people decide. Thank you.
Okay. I think from here, if it pleases the board, I'd like to consider circulating a resolution that, as I mentioned earlier, I've had input from my son-in-law and from the district attorney in fashioning it. And I would like to circulate that and see if we want to modify it or, you know, consider it for adoption for Friday. If we could advertise a public meeting and see if there's an interest from a majority of the board to proceed with it.
Is this different than the one that Jamie presented?
Yes.
Because we had asked Jamie to draw it up. I don't know that we asked your son-in-law to draw it up.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I didn't know that anyone had asked anyone. I just took it upon myself to be prepared for this meeting with something that I could circulate. And I didn't know if you folks had, as individuals, have produced such a document, because Bill and I have not conferred, you and I have not conferred. And so I had no way of knowing that whether or not you brought a a resolution that you would want us to consider. So,
Well, Jamie sent it out for all of us to consider before this meeting
okay.
in
Yeah,
writing.
I've had some changes proposed to it since then, so I, you know.
Good. So
I'll
I guess I'll go back.
again. It's all right.
Do we have a consensus whether or not we should advertise for a meeting for Friday and consider an adoption of a resolution with modifications if necessary?
I think we should do that. Yes, I'm in favor of advertising a meeting, and that doesn't commit any of us to anything today other than to make a decision at the meeting.
And if any of you have additional changes, or I mean, I'll send out a sort of version 2 if you have changes to that. Fine. All new, fine. I mean, it's basically there's whatever the wording that combines them all, or the latest wording available as of Friday. That's what, and you can still amend it at as part of the motion. So.
Right.
Okay, and we may end up with two choices or whatever. If we can't agree, in whole on one, we can modify it or create a second option. I'm too in favor, but I'd like to know, Commissioner Litz, are you in favor of meeting on Friday to consider adoption of the resolution?
I was not looking for a meeting on Friday, no. I'll be burying my mother-in-law tomorrow. We have a family crisis of our own going on. Thank you.
Okay. How would you like us to proceed? You're spending time with us today. Would you like to give some of your opinions now so that Jamie can have that information and we can deliver, use that for our Friday meeting?
I'm not prepared today, sir, for that. No. You're trying to twist things here, and I'm not going to give any answers right now on that.
Okay. All right. Jamie or Dave, where does that leave us as far as being able to with something on Friday? This is the first I've heard, this issue, and I thought we were, unless we want to talk about, just continue the conversation and open up the conversation about the resolution right now while we're all here.
Well, we still are faced with the situation where we can't vote today, Commissioner.
Right, but we could get input though from Commissioner Litz.
I'm not prepared to give input on it today since you have said you have another one and that Jamie has revisions, which I haven't seen. How can I comment on that?
Well, I haven't seen it, so if you want to, Jamie, if you have revisions, I don't know, do you want to, I'm just looking for some guidance here from my fellow commissioners as to how we want to proceed.
I think this idea should be tabled.
Well, we're not in a meeting session, so, we can't vote to table anything.
But you're going to vote to set up a meeting.
Hey, Commissioner Phillips, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So at the request of any one of the 3 members of the board, and certainly with 2 of the 3 of you determining to have a special meeting, you can indicate and give direction to the county administrator to advertise that special meeting to occur with 24 hours notice. So presumably it would run in tomorrow's newspaper and give appropriate notice to the public, and then the meeting could be held on Friday.
And we can get all the information so that Commissioner Litz is up to date on any revisions or any content that she would like to add or change, and we'll go from there. Jamie, do you have a time in mind for Friday's meeting?
First of all, the advertisement, there's still time to get an advertisement in. I checked on that in advance. So it can be advertised tomorrow in preparation for a Friday meeting and still meet the 24 hours that Solicitor noted that's part of the Sunshine Act. And if that were the case, I'd recommend 9 a.m. on Friday morning.
And will this meeting be a Zoom meeting?
Yeah, same format, same, be published in a newspaper as required, and we do the same format where the link would be put onto the website and so on. That's my intent if you so choose. Yep.
And Jo Ellen, my condolences are with you and your family during this time, and I'm sorry that I wasn't aware of this before this moment.
You were aware they died in the Good Samaritan Hospital.
So I was aware of that. Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but I'll, any other business to come before the group today? Any housekeeping, Jamie?
Just want to make sure we've exhausted all those people that want to express an opinion, Commissioner or Bob.
No raised hands, but I would like to take a moment just to remind anybody that was not here for the beginning that in order to say something, please raise your hand. The chat windows are not being monitored.
Okay.
The only housekeeping I might have, Commissioner, is that if there's no objection, I know that Michael Anderson has a few changes to, I think, polling places in advance of the election coming up June 2nd. He was prepared to bring those to you next Thursday at your regularly scheduled meeting. If you're going to have a meeting that is open to the public and advertised, probably would be beneficial to him to get it done sooner than later.
Yes.
Nobody objects to that. It's pretty routine stuff, but he's got to get them advertised and so on. He's in a bit of a bind in some instances.
That's fine with me.
All right, we're doing our best to work through this. This is not just a health problem or crisis, it's economic and it's societal. And we're doing our best to work our way through it. Turns in the road we're trying to straighten out and move forward with. And so that's my pledge and my fellow commissioners, I'm sure. And with that, if there's no further business, I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.